Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here after the close on Friday, the 22nd of March. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. Still traveling. A little tired, but a lot of excitement in the market. So,
Holy moly, lots of stuff to cover today. We're not going to
mhm,
waste a lot of time on chit chat because there is a lot to cover. And
mhm.
we're I mean, I know we say it a lot that this is critical, but when you're getting monthly and weekly major timing cycles, you just don't see those every week. So that's why it's important. Anyway, Barry, as usual, is going to cover the big five, which is ES, bond, gold, crude oil, copper, the dollar, and the euro. And I'm going to cover the commodities today. We're going to look at corn, soybeans, cotton, silver, and nat gas. So without any further ado, let's jump
Get the
into the E-mini, grinding away this week.
and then bolted.
And then it bolted, right? With a
Yeah.
little Fed induced, not drug induced, but Fed induced euphoria.
All right. We always start off by looking at what we ended up with last week. So last week we looked at this 5200 was a key level. This box we drew up the week before was also important. That was the target, optimal target area for this leg price wise. Last week we got to the middle of it. We could say we tapped it and we sold off a bit, but we didn't quite hold above or close below. We're pretty much on the line. And my call was to watch the 5200 level if we can, hold above at least basis the daily chart, or if we get below that. And what ended up happening was, we were really struggling right around the 5200 level, and we got above it the day before we broke out, and then we broke out and with the follow through yesterday and a reversal today.
And Barry, let me interrupt you for 1 second because
Mm-hmm.
we have to really point this out. Look at that box that you drew
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago.
Right. Right there.
People don't realize how hard and how accurate that is of what you're doing.
Mm.
I mean, look where the high came in.
Yeah, right there. 5300, 5310, which is
I
the
mean,
line that we dropped, by the way.
exactly right at the upper limit of your box. Just
Mm-hmm.
a little applause for Barry, please. Very,
No, thank you
very
very
well
much.
done on targeting that. Very well done.
Thanks, Ben. Now let's see if we can target the rest of it and get
Yeah.
the proper timing in place,
And
right?
if the turn's here, let's grab this turn.
Mm-hmm. So 5200 we left off with, and the bracket of the box was really about, it's not a tiny box, it's 100 points.
Yeah.
And you can see why we need it, because we covered the entire spectrum of that. So 52 to 53, 5310 was really the sort of the upper max, thus the upper part of the box, right?
Right.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
And we were looking at timing last week. We looked at this. This is the cash index, and we were looking at what I really commented on. Let me zoom in a bit so it's easy
That
for
was the
you.
135 by 135, right? Yeah.
135 by 135, and we
Hmm.
tapped it the week before we hit the 135 level, which is this 90 plus 45. It was
Hmm.
around 51.87. We tapped it and we dropped one day down, came back up for a lower high, and we sold. We were two, and we followed by 2 down days. And that's when I said, let's see how we follow through with this. And then we jumped to the futures chart to mark off the price levels.
Hmm.
And this was the important thing to watch, what happens here. Now, the next thing that happens here is what follows. If you guys do Gann work, Gann charts, and follow the cycles, we have 90. We can use 120. We can use 135. After that is 144, and after that there's a big
180.
180.
Yeah.
There's a big gap between 44 and 180, and which means, if you get past 144, the markets are usually going to run. There's an odd case where we might get a 167 or something like that, but most of the time it go for the 180. Okay, so
Hmm.
I mean this is just normally what happens.
Right.
And here, so what we left off with was, we're strictly technical. We said, if we somehow price gets above 51.87, then it's highly likely, we're going to move higher to another target. If we get stuck below that, and we were looking at this triangle that was forming, Here's the upper boundaries, of course, is 5187, the 50% line. Then we have a little higher lows coming up. So you have this ascending triangle, which, famously they can, of course, they can break out. They can also break out and false break and slip right through, which is a really
Hmm.
dangerous pattern. So we're going to watch that. So basically, the idea was 51, this 5187 level had to be held one way or the other. If we break above it, then we're in a strong position. So now on the SPX, the 5187 is support, and we're sitting above it. All right, that's sort of the story so far,
Hmm.
bringing it up to date from last week. And now that now that we're kind of blown through the 135 square, which is a square right there where these two dashed lines meet, on the 90-degree square, which is the primary square that we're using, the next really big square is 180 by 180, which is this next month. And 24th of April is where that comes in
Hmm.
at 55.50.
Hmm.
Interesting number. So
All right.
let's see what happens. The higher we go, the more we have to correct, let's say.
Right.
So that's April 23rd or so is when we get the 180 days from this low, calendar days from that low. So what do we have now? So we talked about, we have 120, 135, and really after that, what we have is 144. Lo and behold, we have 144 by 144.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we're off by a day, but listen, this is nothing compare, in
Right.
Gann work, we can actually go a plus or
Plus or
minus.
minus two.
Yeah,
Right.
2 days, not a problem. And this, we tapped this thing perfectly. I'm impressed with it because I set the square at the low, and it was a Friday low. Then we have 2 days weekend.
Weekend. Yep.
And if I pull it up to, let's say, Sunday, okay,
Yep.
it lines up exactly 140 by 144 for Thursday,
Wow.
right? You see that?
At the
Mhm.
high. Yep.
At the high. And well,
And that's the cash, right? That's the
this
SPX
this
cash.
is this is the SPX.
Yep.
So this is a square. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we were harping about, oh, we have 135 by 135, blah blah blah. Okay, all right, fine. So we broke through that, and we both had discussions about this. What happens when a square breaks? 135 by 135, or 90 by 90, 72 by 72, or any other correct proportions, right? What
Hmm.
happens if you take out a price level? Then it's highly likely we get up to the next important level, which is usually midway of the square, or the 50% line in price. So now we completed 144 degrees up in 144 calendar days. So this, to Gann, this is a big deal. Actually, his master square was 144. It wasn't 130,
144 was.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, it
Yep.
wasn't 135. Should this be of some concern? Well, I would say yeah, because it is 140 by 144 by 144. It's a master square. Was the 135 important? Yeah, sure, it was important because sometimes stocks, commodities, they can square on some kind of a division of the 90. So we
Hmm.
had that, and we had a clear breakout, and it broke out right into the 144. I think so. This is the thing. It's not to like we have a square going on every week. Okay.
Not 144 by 144. That's for sure.
Yeah, and they're coming, and the severity is different for different squares, and the timing and how everything else lines up. You talked about monthlies and weeklies lining up, so a lot of things matter, and you have to stack it in the proper order to see the importance of a daily square, let's say.
Hmm.
So this is the daily square, and we're at the master square, 144 by 144, and it's not the futures, it's the cash index, and we're squaring out. So what do we do when this happens? It's the same thing as what we talked about. If you guys want to go back and look at the episode where we talked about the 135 by 135. Nice thing is it's moving. If you notice, I mean, here's something you want to notice, okay? The reason the 135 by 135 worked and all the squares work is if you draw a diagonal here, let me just do
That's
it.
your one by one.
Yeah, let me throw in a quick trading lesson in the middle of all this. Well, it's all right, right?
Yeah.
People like it. So, all right, let me make it green so you guys
You
can
know,
see it.
Barry, you know the other thing great about your little square there
What's
is
that?
that you also did an ending 72 by 72 just about.
Yeah, exactly. That's from here. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
exactly. Right there.
And there's a ABCD going on in here too. But anyway,
Yeah.
what I wanted to show you was this diagonal, which is the one by one. Okay. So as we're moving up this, obviously every one of these points is squaring to a one-to-one
A
division,
time.
the
Yeah.
time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to here, when we get to, so 135 by 135 was here. And now Thursday, we clicked exactly 145, 144 by 144. And the reason for all that is because we're climbing one by one. Basically, we were on top of it, up until February. And then March, we kind of, like we dropped a little bit of momentum. Then we picked it up last couple of days. So we're back. Now we're kissing the one by one from below, right? So we were above it, broke below,
Dangerous.
broke below,
Mm-hmm.
gapped up, kind of mess around, going back and forth. And we just, we had 3 days straight up into that. You see that? We had an
Mm-hmm.
inside bar, outside, reversal, up, and Thursday high. Very
Mm-hmm.
narrow day, by the way, at the high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a narrow day so far. All right. So this is a pretty good way to travel through a square along the one by one. And it does show you a lot of strength. Let's not forget that. This is
That's Gann said that's the definition of strength and a bull trend if you could stay on top of the one by one.
That's right. And even if it's a one by two, I mean that which would be here, I mean it's still a hell of a trend to track, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Right, right.
And if you go back and look, you can see just for perspective. So here's the low from last March. You can see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see how the one by two we touched here,
Yep.
and it basically stayed on top till we broke it. Then we came under and kissed it. If you extend the line,
Yep.
and then we began the correction.
Yep.
So that's the end of the lesson. I don't want to bore you guys.
No, it's good
Well,
stuff.
yeah, I mean, this is really good stuff. If you
It's
want to know
foundational. Foundational.
exactly, and sometimes we don't take a minute to explain these things, and you guys might not get the value of what we're doing with the squares and how we can sort of gauge the strength of the market or the weakness of the market, or when price and time squares out, what these things
Mm-hmm.
mean, and the sort of the gravity of the weight of it, these things we talk about. So here, master square 144, we talked about it. We talked about how it needs to stay. Okay, well, we always talk about level. What's the level here? I'd say it's 52.65. So long as we are below 52.65, I would say the square is in place. That's just how it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
52.65. Let me type it in.
That's your 144 line, right?
That's the 144 line, which is
Mm-hmm.
put it right there. We have it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, long as we're below that, I would say this thing squared out. When would we know the square is invalid? Well, when we can break and hold above 52.65. And I'll show you the difference between breaking and holding above the level and doing a false break. A little bit later, we saw that in a couple of markets this week.
And
So
everybody,
for
if you're watching the video, remember he's talking about cash, 5265 cash,
yeah,
SPX.
SPX, yep,
Yeah.
and this is the calendar day.
Yep.
So 52.65 is the level to watch. If we get above it, I would say, well, we just talked about it earlier. What's on the other side would be the 180. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and till then, this is really the key. And if you guys can watch trend lines to the downside. So how do we know it's breaking down? And we went into detail last couple of sessions, I think, because we were trying to we were dealing with the 135.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to see is a lower high. First counter trend is basically what we want to look at. Right, Ben? This is what we
That's
always
exactly
talk
right.
about, right?
Yeah. It's the lowest
And
risk entry once you get that first counter trend.
yep, and it's no different. And I'll leave the 144 because if we break to the upside, the next square up here is 180. So that's 180 by 180 would be right there.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, let's see how it works. So just to follow through on with the cash, I'll give you a breakdown point. So the support we've had so far is 51, let's say 85. And, that's sort of the consolidation level. If we can consolidate above 51.82, let's see, 82, 85, 89. Hold on, let me get the right number here. Let's say 51.90, just to be. If we
Mm-hmm.
can be above 51.90, we need to really break that. I think breaking 51.90 will give us the sort of the momentum we need to the downside.
It'd be a
Long as we're
green light.
long as we're between 51.90 and 52.65, it's consolidating in kind of a positive way
Mm-hmm.
in general. Okay, but because we have the 144 there, we always want to keep an eye out. Hey, is it making lower high? Did we make a first counter trend with the lower high? And are we breaking down? So this is when you want to really start focusing on your pattern recognition and the way the market structure and how the
Structure.
bars,
Yep.
yeah, and how the bars are lining up.
Mm-hmm.
So watch for that. In the meantime, we know what the two levels are in general.
It's funny, Barry, you have your 144 by 144 on the cash calendar day. On
Hmm.
trading day on ES, I noted in my notes that we did 144 by 101 from that same low.
Yeah, well, that's really important number too.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our 144 and 108. You mean, yeah, 144 by 108.
108, yeah.
It's coming right up, and we're within the box. So the reason I used the cash was it's just cleaner, but here it's the same deal. So let's just do exactly what we did there. Just like the number we talked about for cash, 52.65. In the futures, that'll be 53.10.
Yep, got to
Okay,
settle above it.
got to settle above it. Otherwise, between in this the 100-point range, if we consolidate in here, it's
It's still bullish,
it's
yeah.
very bullish. You don't want to
Yeah.
fight that.
Yep.
But knowing the cycles that came in, what we're watching for right now is that first counter trend. We want to see if we end up at a lower high, and that's worth taking a shot at. And normally we short those things and be on top of it, because if it's not, but we only do those at really main squares. And if it's not working out, you have a very low risk. You get out and you wait for the next one, another
Mm-hmm.
45 days or 36 days from that point. In the meantime, you just trade with the trend. So here, pretty much the same story as the cash. 53.10 is what we want to settle above, and everything else is the same. Lower high would, you know, help us get through.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look at the weekly really quick. So weekly, we had this big ABCD. We thought, I mean, last week it was beautiful. We came and tapped it, sold off a little bit. Talk about, you know, being tempted. And this is why we wait for the daily to give us the correct pattern, a lower high or some kind of a
Mm-hmm.
trigger. This is why you want to have a setup to get on the short side, even on a lower time frame, because you can't just blindly jump on these things just because price met some target, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
our system's not that good. So, all right. So basically, we have a Gartley here, X, A, B, C, D, and the
Mm-hmm.
Gartley normally has a lot of targets up above. It's not just
A
the
single target, right?
single target. So we have some targets coming up, and this is the square of 81. And I wanted to look at some other this low back in '09,
Oh,
and
that's a good one.
it's a good low. And I wanted to pull out. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. Take the 72.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, look at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 792 by 288, and that's a whole bunch of squares. That two cycles plus 172.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. And that's coming together. And this is on a weekly, you guys. This is no joke.
No.
April 29th. April 29th.
Yep.
So that you see how the April 24th, on the daily, and that came from this low here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now this is from the '09 low on a weekly basis. 792 weeks coming up, and 288 and
Mm-hmm.
792 in time and in towards the end of April. Very important. So
Yep.
again, now we have a very long term, over almost 800 weeks, square 72. We did, and there is something to having two cycles plus one. Okay, that's we don't have time to get into all of that. So we do have timing. That's what I wanted to say. Well, we have time and price. All right.
And
That's
Barry, you know why that '09 low I think is really important too?
mhm.
That started this whole QE mess.
Yeah, that's right.
So the fact that we're getting a bunch of timing off of that, off the weekly and monthly, that's squaring out,
Hmm.
means this whole big cycle could be coming to an end.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
that started the QE era right there.
that's right. That's right. I mean, that would be epic if we can get all that
Yeah,
into place. Um,
absolutely.
so, all right. So we have that, and we still have 81 weeks coming in at the end of April,
Hmm.
early May. That's May 6th would be exactly on there. But if you go
I
one
like
bar,
that. I like
uh-huh,
that date.
that'll be April 29th, and the price would be right around 46.67. So this is on the weekly, you guys. There are other timing points that are coming up on the weekly, and we can look at them later. But now we have to I want to look at the 72 here. I'm going to show you this 72-degree move right there. So we're up 72 from this low, which is the 144 we're picking up on the daily,
Hmm.
similar. So we have enough on the weekly, especially from that long term, okay? From that '09 low. And we have the current numbers that we talked about. What do we do with all this? Well, we're going to proceed cautiously and watch these levels. If you
Yeah.
trade the futures, 53.10 is a level. Long as we're under that, we have to think that we square it out. And everything we talked about on the cash applies pattern wise and so forth and so on. And let me see if there's anything else tied to this.
You want to throw something else in on the monthly?
I don't have monthly, but oh, you have something?
Yeah, 288 by 180
Mm-hmm.
from the
Mm-hmm.
'09 low,
Okay, okay.
which is 180 months
Right, right.
by,
It,
288
mhm.
in price.
Okay, that's big. And
Huge.
here on the Dow, we're up 180 degrees exactly. This Dow I've
Hmm.
been talking about, this entire time about coming up, and waiting for it to hit this level. And
Hmm.
eventually, we got there, so we're up 180 degrees. All right. All right, we're done with that. Let's move on to bonds. What do we see here? A little bit of a compression,
Yeah, a little chopping around.
chopping around for a bit. So this 124 is really the major resistance. We want to watch that closely. Long as we're below that, it's sort of in a weak position. I mean, we're going sideways, so not a whole lot to say.
Hmm.
And it depends on the perspective. If you take it from the low back in October, we ran up 72 degrees and we're correcting. We're holding above the 50% of the square. So generally that's positive, right? We can say, well, that's a positive place to be versus below the 50% square.
But just don't look left.
Yeah, just or don't look at the weekly.
All right.
Let's just see what happens here. We have to wait till the consolidation phase finishes. As long as we're between, let's say 160, 1916 and 124, not much to do. It's sort of a consolidation. Now, this last few days are between the it's really between the last high and the low in February. So we're
Yep.
even getting narrower, which means we're about to break out at some point in the coming days and weeks. So let's keep an eye on that. What we are getting is really tight triangle.
Yep.
I guess you guys can see that right here.
Winding up.
It's definitely winding up right there. It's about to, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's on the way.
That's right.
Some kind of a breakout. There we go. Let's take a look at the weekly bonds. What can I say? There is a downtrend that Ben was talking about.
Hmm.
Looking to the left, and we talk about this every week. We have this overhead, 128.07 is sort of the major key level that we're watching, and 50% of the square is around 132.05, 132.10. And long as we're below that, it's sort of in a weak position. And long as we're below that and we're below the 128.07 and the 50% of the square, I think 114 area is really the next real test. And looks, even in the bigger picture, we're heading down. This is a clear downtrend. We didn't have a whole lot of things coming in at the low. So I don't think we've seen the low in bonds, which says a lot. And I think it's a good thing to know moving forward. See the square 60 there, square 90, 180 is down below par. So looks like we have more to go. And here we're really holding about the 135. Maybe we should watch this instead into the 72. I'll leave it on here for a bit.
Yeah.
So, that's the story. You have anything to add to that?
Just that we have 3 monthly bars that are inside. So
Mm.
we've been chopping for a while.
Chopping for a while, which means we're about to break and run for a while too,
Right.
at some point. So let's wait for that. In the meantime, we're triangulating, we're narrowing, and we're still in a downtrend, and we really didn't have anything to call out the low yet. So that's kind of my take on bonds. Moving on to crude, a little bit more excitement. We're holding well above the 50% of the square, around 77. And when that happened, we got above it. I said 83 is our next resistance. We went and tapped that this week and pulled back completely. I would say it's like normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looks like if you take these highs back in November, January, and drop a line, looks like 79 is the support. If we can hold 79, the market's in a very strong position.
Mm-hmm.
And we already tested 77 level, looks pretty good. And if you look at the basic trend, we're picking up some momentum. So looks like we're pointed up. And just like we did with the 50% of the square at 77, when we get above 83, I think that would set up 91 as the next target. 91 and this the old high, which ends up becoming about 95, and then 97 is really the next target. Sorry, 97 is the next target. I kept
Mm-hmm.
it square here because we squared out at a 54 by 54, and that's when we look for a turn. And since that, we started getting higher lows, so we're doing okay. Maybe if we take it down, so we're well below the 50% of the square. If we go to the low in May, you can see we're, still haven't quite gotten above the 50%. So that's kind of the story. I think next step is really to hold above. If we're bullish, case would be to hold above 79 and then clear 83. It opens up to
Mm-hmm.
91.
Mm-hmm.
And the bearish case would really be, between 73 and that $10 range is really consolidation. So really no bearish case until we can get above 73 and a half.
Below 73 and a half.
Yeah, below 73 and a half. Yep.
Yep.
Let's get on to the weekly chart. We're doing okay. Well, any
Just
up
grinding
bars?
higher.
Yeah. If we can be up, that's okay. Made a higher high and a higher low for the week. And this is, I'm just extending sort of the box of support resistance. And now we're in it now. I would say ideally, basis the weekly, we want to hold above 79. So 77, 79, that's really what we want to hold above. Once we break out of this 85 area, basis the weekly, I think it opens up full square.
Mm-hmm.
The
Up near
90,
100. Yeah.
90 up from the low, which would be, 96, 97.
Mm-hmm.
Not much to do there. I think it's bullish, it's moving slowly, let it move, it's doing okay.
Yep.
Now, gold, on the other hand, pretty classic in a way. We ran up to 90, and that's our 90 degrees resistance.
Hmm.
We were if that was it, we'd look for a a lower high to come in, but instead we spiked and came back. So this has the potential for a false break,
Yeah. Yep.
right? So watch gold closely. If we take out this low at around 2150, we could correct harder right into this box, or let's just say at least 2100, which would still be very bullish and normal and expected. So watch that. Okay. Anything you want to add for the gold? That's all I
We
really
do.
can say.
I on multiple time frames, I got decent squares up at that high. Daily 54 by 27, weekly 144 by 72.
Hmm.
So so we could see some,
Some kind of a
some sort of
correction.
consolidation and pullback, yeah,
Hmm.
which would be healthy.
Right. So we're 120, okay, by 90 right there. So
And
yeah.
it might just go sideways, it might chop, who knows? But
Hmm.
I think that initial thrust ended. Now we have to see what's coming next.
Yeah. I mean, overall in the big picture, long as we're above 2100, it's in a super good place.
Right.
And I wouldn't be too concerned.
Hmm.
Looking at the weekly, this is why it's in a super good place because
Exactly.
you're right, there's 2100 and we're well above it, just about tap 2250. So let it finish up and let it correct, and it's moving up. I mean, we had a higher high this week. That's nothing to sneer at. So looks like it's moving and it's in a good place. I didn't have any big termination points showing up, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Just it's taking its time and moving.
Hmm.
Um, Copper is correcting, and we cleared the 50% of the square, ran up another quarter of the square, up around into 417, and correcting. And here's our box. So this looks like a normal correction. We do have a high or low if you want to look at this as a high, but let's
Hmm.
see. I'm looking at this to correct and hopefully hold above, 392, 392, 396. If you can hold above around that area, I think the the lows are in, the basing is done. And I'm looking at this as a retest of the breakout. And if that holds between, let's say 96 and 4,
Hmm.
we're, we're setting up to move higher.
Sure.
Hmm. And if you look at the weekly, there we go. We got above the 50% of the square, came back down. We do have an inside week. So if we take out the high or the low, that'll tell us next week. If we take out the high, obviously we're in good shapes and things are looking good for copper. If we don't, I mean, there's another little triangle here. So I think a little correction and backing and filling is okay. Copper does it all the time.
Hmm.
The main thing, really the main thing is we came into this low, and over time, no matter what the news is, we've been going higher, right? We made a low, higher low,
Hmm.
and now a higher high. So typical of copper, I think it's probably going to consolidate here, maybe back and fill a little bit. But I think the next, like the impulse move would be above 405 or so. We need to hold above that. Then we can maybe take on the old highs. All right. Next, we move on to the dollar.
Nice day today on the dollar.
Nice day today. Yesterday was good. Had a nice reversal. When
Hmm.
we came, we went up to 2/3 of the square, and we can think, well, you can square starts here. So 1/3 of the square came back to 2/3, held support, and we were really watching this 50% of the square. And we struggled a little bit, but mainly on the positive side, above the square, above the 50% level. And well, now we're just moving back again. So if we take out 105, 107 really is the next place.
Hmm.
And we've been bullish the dollar, and we continue to be bullish the dollar. I don't know what else to do with the dollar other than be bullish
Yeah,
right
it looks
now.
good.
Hmm. I'm using the 60 because we did square out here, and we came back a little bit of a consolidation, lower high, sold off. We did 120, low to low, rallied, roughly 30 days, pulled back. So we're starting to move higher. It's looking stronger. Let it go on. I think if we can clear this 105, the 1/3, which it seems to be vibrating off of, if we clear that, I think 107.25 is the next stop.
Yesterday's bar with that low on the half square is a bullish sign, right?
Very
The
bullish,
low
yeah.
tested it and then turned.
Well, Wednesday came down hard, right?
Yep.
Then we went into Thursday with that low open, gap down, and then not
And
the
then
gap
took
down, but
off.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Let's look at the weekly dollar.
Looks like it's getting ready to take out a weekly high.
Tell you what, this is last week we talked about. I remember clearly talking about an inside bar, and we said if we take out the high of last week, watch out, we're probably going to rally, and there you go.
There it goes. Yep.
Yep. And basis the weekly, really, I think we're ready to go. I think we should have a follow through next week. Looks like it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take out the bar from February 16th, the high there was 105.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So if we take out 105, we're opening it up. And consolidation just might be over this big one.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm trying to see anything to add. Nope. Moving on to the euro. Well, we're back at the 108. This was the key level we set out. Now I'm kind of sorry I set that up because that's all we've been doing for months and right for months and
Yeah.
months. And you can see we're having a narrower range and back at 108. So the basic story is, as long as we're above it, we could bounce, we could run. If we get under it, we could probably sell off and go back and test the old lows from October. And I'm just sticking with that. That's not a whole lot to add to that. And if you look at the weekly, where really the center point here is 108, and we're right there when we closed right on it, a little bit above it. So we'll see what next week. If the dollar continues, we're probably going to drop into this zone. And if we're below 108, obviously we're susceptible to do sell-offs and any kind of downdrafts. And
Mm-hmm.
above it, we can always bounce. So watch out for that. So we're looking for a weak euro below 108. All right, that's the euro. Are you going to look at natural gas this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We had a
So,
nice pullback.
yeah, we came down to this 153 support from the high, which is pretty good. It's 135 degrees down. And we're waiting for the basing part to finish. I mean, there's a little bit of overhead now. I'm curious to see how this works out. And normally when you have huge overhead like this, how we break out is through some kind of a new spike. We break and then somehow hold on to that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Or we might grind through it this time. Either way, looks like the support is holding the 135 degrees down at 153, but not ready to make any moves on it. It's still at a very baby stage.
Mm-hmm.
Hang Seng kind of holding its own, well above the lows. Trend is intact. We'll see what happens next week. Ideally, we want to be above, 16,550, let's say. So we're right in that range. Not much to add to that. I think that's all I got. Let me put it back to you.
Okay.
All right. Cover the commodities and other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing to watch next week is the cash index 52.65 and the 51.90 bracket. Timing came in. So, all right, let me put it back to you. ABCD is fulfilled.
Yep. A little ABCD
Mm-hmm.
where we shot up, and then let me get rid of this ABCD now. And you can
Almost
see
108 bars. Yep. Looking good.
we did 104
Mm-hmm.
from here.
Yep.
375 from the September or October 22 low.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not where the big squares are. The big squares are when we go into the weekly, monthly, the time counts are pretty tremendous. So here, the key thing we saw here is look how we were moving when we started out, right? Really moving quickly and nicely, and then look how choppy we're getting now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's losing momentum clearly. It's holding this trend line. But what I noticed on the daily is, we shot up yesterday, took a shot at clearing this half square, and then today we had a reversal bar completely under the half square.
Right, right.
So the next big test is here, this full square. When that's 17,900, we come back to that level. That's going to be the big test. Do we hold it here or do we get stuck on, do we push through, retest and get stuck under? Then you can get a decent correction going. But
Mm-hmm,
let's look
mm-hmm,
at let's look at the weekly monthly because I think that's where bigger picture you can sort of see some things here. On the weekly, if you go from here, the January 7th low
mm-hmm.
to here, we've got a 60 by 60 square. Let me show it to you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right in
good.
here. If that holds, that's going to be something that we have to watch very closely because that could potentially give us a turn. We also have this, this is a third, I'm putting in 30, so it's a little more visual. You can see it better, see the pullbacks and the support. We're coming into timing here where we're, 180 plus one cycle is, 210.
Mm-hmm,
It's coming up next week. Now let's jump to the monthly. Here's another big thing. Look at all these time counts coming in on monthly. So the last
mm-hmm.
run, 18 months
Yep.
from the COVID lows, a little over 45. It's like
Well,
48.
well, 48 is super valid for
Yep,
monthly. Mm-hmm,
48. From the 2018 lows,
mm-hmm.
there's 60 goes right here. From the
And 60 is a
2009
huge number for the monthly again,
and the 2009 low, we're,
180.
we're at 180. So I mean that's a lot of significant timing in a window of say the next month and a half,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
back a half a month, going back 1 month and going over 1 month. And we're
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
obviously already to almost 2 months in because we're at the end of March.
mm-hmm.
And look where we are in price,
That's
right
true.
on a full square. So
Looks good. I mean, this is the thing, right? We have all these monthlies lined up and some weeklies, and that's why we have to pay attention to any kind of a daily setup that's setting up, which is like your 60, and that combined with the 144 that we saw in the S&P. And you want to look at every one of those opportunities because we know the monthly is lined up. So then you
right.
want
So
to
if we can
zoom in,
get a
yeah.
lower high here, right? We get some sort of a couple days down and then we get a 1 day pullback and give us a lower high. You want to
Hmm.
be on that reversal. I mean, it's not guaranteed. We don't know that, it's gonna, we're gonna see the reversal. It's gonna happen. We just got to be aware if it shows up to act.
Well, but those big turns in the market, that's how they start. So it starts with these timing cycles grouped in this way, stacked like this. So when we're in that bracket in time, it's worthwhile to play those setups to get, pull you into a trade. Yeah.
Because it could be a fantastic one. All right, let's look at Bitcoin. Look, you'll love this, Barry. Look at where the high came in. Right smack dab on a full square. And look where we started the terminal run, right? Right on the half square. It really, really reacts well to the square. Anyway, the key thing I wanted to show you on this chart is remember last week we talked about if we lose this 4 by 1 here,
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to go down and we're going to test the 2 by 1.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where price was the last or 3 or 4 days this week.
Yeah.
And we closed under the 2 by 1. So if we lose this, if we can't get back above this 2 by 1, we're
Hmm.
coming down here. We're coming down to test the 1 by 1. The next test clearly is going to be the half square here, and that's 60,342. And then if we lose that, then it's going to test this 1 by 1.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while Bitcoin's had a great run, it's in a weak position right now. It's looking like the weight of evidence is going to go to the downside now. The key levels, if you want to look, bigger picture, is can we hold this little consolidation that we built on the way up when we come
Hmm.
down?
Hmm.
Because if we lose that, then it's going to be here, and it's going to be testing this whole structure that we had here in this half square. It's not going to be boring, that's for sure. Anything else you want to add on Bitcoin?
No, no, I don't have anything to add. I think we have to just continue to watch it. Watch the timing. Let's see if we can hold the 1 by 1. Not much to add for now. It's in a good spot, obviously, about that half, 50% of the square. Still,
Yeah, still
you know,
big
yeah.
picture. Yep.
Hmm.
All right, let's jump into the commodities. The commodities, most of them were correcting this week. So we're going to show you the patterns and see, okay, what do we need to see out of this each different commodity to have it be bullish and have us be able to, get involved. So
Hmm.
corn, we triangulated down into the low. We caught this ABCD that came down. We pushed up and we're stuck. As you can see, we're stuck under this half square.
Hmm.
But we've been holding up and these little consolidations we push higher. And if you look, we're consolidating on top of this stuff right in here.
Hmm.
This sort of triangle where we made the low.
Hmm.
What we want to see next week is we want to see it push above this half square at 44.17. If we can get a push above that, then we know that, okay, on the next pullback, as long as we hold above that half square, that low is in place and we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
And then we can catch a potentially fast move, testing these trend lines from, highs way back. This
Hmm.
one's from this one's from the high of the Russian invasion. So that's a major one.
Right.
So that's corn. The other thing I wanted to show you on the monthly was we did 22 months high to this low.
Wow.
22 is a good number on a monthly.
Yeah.
It was right on timing. And then now we're inside. So hopefully we could, if we get a little strength next week, we maybe get an up bar for the month. Even if we get an inside bar and we close near the high for the month, once we take out the high of that inside bar, your sort of method, Barry, we know that we should see a push higher.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
But this 22 months is a pretty good number for a correction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything to add on corn?
Well, we were waiting for it to come and test the breakout level, and
Yeah.
we're here, and we have an inside bar. I think next week's going to be the one to watch.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
So
really important, that inside bar there is really
on
important. So
on the monthly,
yeah.
yeah, and we have what, 4 trading days next week where the monthly bar is
Hmm.
going to finish. So
Hmm.
it's either going to end up inside or unless, I mean, or they might be able to push it up and make it an actual up bar for the month. We'll see.
What I meant was the next bar. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
next bar. And the
Hmm.
next bar is coming after 4 trading days. There's only 4 trading days left.
Yep.
So let's see. All right, let's check the next one, which is soybeans.
Hmm.
Like corn, we were tracking this thing into the lows. It did a nice little ABCD down, and then we got this turn. You could see it's been a little more vertical move, whereas the move for corn was a little more muted.
Hmm.
And here we're seeing where the battle is. The battle is right here at this full square. We've tested it 3 times and not been able to bust through it. It's around
Yeah.
12, 12, 15, 12, 16.
Hmm.
So when we see the reversal here, you can watch the daily for a reversal. The next reversal you get, we really want to see us bust through this full square because
Right.
that'll show power. Now
Hmm.
we beat this downtrend line. This is the one from the Russian invasion of Ukraine highs. This is one off of another local high here. But this one looks good again because we're seeing a series of small but definitely definable higher lows.
Mm.
And as long as we sit on top of this harmonic balance point, this yellow line, we're
Hmm.
basically sitting on top of this previous old high.
Yep. Yep.
So soybeans look good in that they're a little stronger than corn, and you could see the strength when we take a look at the monthly. We actually have a monthly up bar. We did this ABCD down,
Hmm.
right? And now
Yep.
first bar we've got an up bar. It's slight. It was barely higher than the previous month, but it is an up bar so far. So after next week, we see the 4 days, the 4 trading days. We'll have a full monthly bar and a new monthly bar, and we can see if we're starting to get this turn here on a
Hmm.
monthly basis.
Yep.
Anything to add here on beans?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like corn. We came back to the breakout area, so it's a really good place to watch and get triggered into a trade to the long side.
Yeah.
these are the places to watch, and we waited all this time,
22
and
months since the high.
yeah, and we're here. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good, perfect timing.
Yep. All right, let's go to another one that we're watching and we've been tracking for a long time this year, and it's doing a perfect little correction. It's cotton. So if you haven't been following along, go back and check the videos. We'll give you a quick Reader's Digest version. We had this 17, 18-month consolidation, really tight and really narrow. We broke
Hmm.
out of it, came up and tested the full square, and now we're doing a nice little ABCD down right into the half square, sitting right on top of all this support that
Hmm.
that we were using, that basically the top of that 17 or 18-month consolidation. And we're just sort of drifting down into it. I'm really curious to see this week if we can actually come down, touch the half square, and then reverse.
Hmm.
That would be the ideal trade. Complete the ABCD, hold the hold the half square, and give us a daily reversal bar. That would be something like a gift trade, because
Yeah.
that'll show the breakout, retest, go,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
One, two, potential big move three. Let's take a look at the weekly.
Hmm.
Here's a sort of a better bird's eye view of it, a little higher up
Yeah.
time
Look at
frame.
that. Nice,
Right.
perfect check back.
Right. Here's your big consolidation, right? Your breakout didn't couldn't go on the first one. We got rejected at the full square, and now we're just drifting back. This is the first down bar, by the way. We had two inside bars previously.
Hmm.
Here's your down bar. So ideally, we'll test this and then reverse next week. That would be, 1 week pullback and then we go. Just sort of lulling everybody to sleep before the big move. That's what it feels like.
Exactly what happens.
Anything
Exactly what
else?
happens.
Anything else you want to add on cotton?
No, no, we got it. I mean, it's time to watch the grains. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yep.
and this is the time. It's not every day. It's rare that futures markets in well, cotton, grains make these pullbacks with a lot of announcements. They all happen quietly,
Yep.
and so it's happening.
All right, let's go to the next one. Silver. So here's silver. Uh, Silver, a lot like gold, had this nice thrust up,
Hmm.
basically to the top of this range, and now we're pulling back. But look at today's bar. Look where the low is,
Wow.
right on that half square.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what we want to see. Like to see a reversal next week. Um, we did sort of a 30 by 30 here at the
Yep.
high. So
Yeah.
there's a little square there. Again, it's not a major square, but it could be like signaling, okay, this is the end of the first wave. Now we're going to see a consolidation or some sort of pullback. If we burn time in the cycle and just go sideways, staying on top of the half square, that will be super, super bullish.
Mm.
Let's jump into the monthly on silver, because I want to show you why it's not flying yet. We're in this big triangle, right?
There you
But
go.
look how we're getting compressed up against this full square. And
Hmm.
so when this thing breaks out of this kind of triangle, massive move. The triangle started, you could say it started in 2020, 2021. So you're talking about a 3 or 4 year triangle that we're doing here.
Hmm.
And if you want to see what happens when you break out of a massive monthly triangle, go look at the Cocoa chart. That thing is still going up, which is
Yeah.
insane.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
But that's the power behind these monthly, when you're building up monthly energy and you finally get that breakout, that's when you see the daily and the weekly go vertical,
Hmm. Hmm.
because the monthly it just powers, right? I mean, the move will be massive. And here, if you just look at the triangle, it's about, you know, 3/4 of a square. So if we say the breakout's right here, that puts it up near 50, up in here,
Yeah.
45, 50. And then who knows what happens, right? If they really squeeze it, these things just get totally crazy. And as I said, see Cocoa for a market that's gone berserk. Anything you want to add here on silver?
Well, let's wait for the triangle to set up, break out.
Yeah. This is going to be a monster move once it happens. And we just gotta keep watching it and stay on top of it.
Exactly.
Let's finish up with our old friend natural gas. And
Hmm.
what do we want to talk about here? Well, we made the low, we pushed up, and look where the higher low came in, sitting right on top of our full square. And
Hmm.
that's what you want to see on this pullback. We have a reversal. Now let's see if can we make a higher high? Can we take out this high here?
Right.
Then this is how it starts. It's just baby steps. It's not, mortgage the farm and bet everything here. It's just watch the pattern develop because this is how the lows come in and this is how
Hmm.
they start.
Yep.
And so it's doing what it needs to do to give us the confidence that it's coming. Now
Hmm.
let's look at the higher time frames and see if are they supporting us. Oh, look at this. The higher low is on the
Hmm.
full square.
Hmm.
Again, another good sign. What's the next piece of evidence we want to see on a weekly? Take out that high,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But this is
Sure.
how it starts. Now let's look at the monthly. Here's one for you, Barry. So
Oh,
the
look at that.
monthly,
Hmm.
this from here to the low bar,
Hmm.
18 months.
Looking good.
That's a good number, right? That's a
Yeah. Yeah.
good number on a monthly basis. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's 18 months high to low. And the low so far this month is sitting on top of the full square.
Hmm. Hmm.
So again, is it, sell everything and go buy natural gas futures? No, but it's pay attention because the evidence is starting to mount up that this thing is starting to build bullish structure and build bullish patterns that could result in, you know, a turn in a market from being bearish to bullish.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
that's what we're looking to see.
Yep.
Anything else to add quickly on nat gas?
No, we covered it. Good coverage. Good job. Right.
Yeah, I think the big picture theme we want you to get from this week is there's a lot of timing coming in from major markets on major time frames of monthly and weeklies. So we really need to pay attention in all these markets because big turns could be in the offing. So it's a big week coming up, a short week in the market. We got to pay attention because we're going to get a lot of clues in the coming weeks as to which way this thing's going to go.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you supporting the channel and liking and sharing the videos. And have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Ben. Good job. We'll pick it up next week, see what happens.
Absolutely. Take
Okay.
care, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.